This is episode 47, Figurative Language.
Hey everyone, we're back with another episode of SLP's Wine and Cheese. I'm Maria.
I'm Deborah.
And here is our podcast.
For the realistic SLP.
Welcome to our show. So, we are drinking a very exciting wine. At least I'm very excited about it.
Right.
Yes.
Me too.
So, it is a Grenache from the Grenache grape.
Ah.
Yes, which I didn't even know was a grape.
Me neither.
Yeah, and it's one of the most popular grapes. Look at that.
Oh.
Right, the
What
irony
color
is
is
there.
it?
Well,
Red?
it's red. So we're
Yes.
drinking a red wine from Grateful Palate from the Bitch line.
Right,
I'm
yes.
not making that up.
There's a
That-
variety of bitch wines that they have, right?
They do.
Yes.
They have various bitch lines.
Good. And they will be all at our show at the Creek in the Cave on
That's-
Friday, right?
Yes, this Friday, May 31st, 2019.
Right.
This is in Long Island City, right? Doors open 7:30 and the show starts at 8. So Grateful Palate is featuring their, again, bitch line for our listeners to try. So specifically today we're having one of the red wines from the Grenache grape. And the wine was actually manufactured in Calatayud, which is in Spain. That's not the name of the wine. After I
Oh.
did more thorough research regarding the wine.
Good thing you did but more research.
I guess because I was thinking the grapes are a Calatayud.
Right.
But Calatayud is a location. So,
Aha.
right, which is in Spain. And they're also known for manufacturing a lot of wines. Probably because the grapes there.
they come from there.
Yes, so it all
Oh.
makes sense
Yes.
now with my
It's
thorough
all coming
research.
back.
It's all coming back to me now. Yeah, so
Yes.
I like this wine. It's light and smooth, but it still has like a strong taste. It's not like a watered down, like,
Right.
don't mess with this
It's
wine.
like a punch in your mouth.
but not like a bad punch.
Right. Like a wake up, you're here.
Wake up. Your
Things are happening.
Yeah, like in a good way though.
Yeah.
Not like, wow, I'm
Like whoopam.
what Pam. I like that.
That's an onomatopoeia.
I know. You're jumping ahead because I'm still excited about the wine.
Oh, okay.
So I just wanted to say what we paired the wine with.
Okay.
Because it's so strong, right? Do you
Right.
taste it? It's like, it's not so strong, but it is.
It's like a richer wine.
Yes. So I like that Deb picked out this cheese. She's really good at pairing cheeses. I have to give it
Yeah,
to her.
most of the time I don't even know what wine we're going to have, so I'm that good at pairing
Wow.
cheeses.
Do you think it's the cheese store that you go to?
Maybe. I just try to pick cheese that I think looks good. And then maybe like all good wine goes with all good cheese.
Good. I think so too.
Probably not. I bet some like wine
Yeah.
connoisseur
So-
would be like, you are doing all of this wrong.
Especially.
We'll have to have a wine person as a guest.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down.
All right.
Yes,
Sounds good.
That is
Anyway,
good.
so I vote drink it
Definitely
on the bitch wine.
drink it. The Grenache grapes. Cheers to that.
Mhm.
But the mozzarella we paired it with, which
Right.
is a smooth cheese, and I feel like it helped with the smooth wine, and it was just like a very nice, light taste and a rich texture. So
Yes.
drink
It's
it.
going good together.
Yeah.
So,
It's a great pairing.
yes.
Happy about that. So today we wanted to talk about figurative language, but before we get into all the different aspects of figurative language, there's also literal language, right?
Right.
So I know you like definitions.
Oh, sure.
Go
I don't
for
have
it.
the definition handy, but obviously,
Yeah.
literal language is meaning something
Exactly.
exactly word for what you are saying, so that there
Right.
is no underlining meaning. Do you have kids that struggle with like figurative language questions or anything that's like critically thinking or anything?
Of course, yes. I think it's I feel like figurative language is hard for adults. Typically
I
developing.
agree. That's why
So-
I always feel really like secure or fulfilled or satisfied or whatever you want to say by working on figurative language, because I'm like, I know this is difficult for all people, so if I'm helping someone to comprehend it, then I'm helping everyone.
Absolutely.
With some sort of like literacy or language type need. So
Yeah.
literal means taking words in their usual or most basic sense without metaphor or allegory. And then, but figurative.
That's from dictionary.com.
Yes.
Just, giving credit where credit is due.
Right. And figurative language is language that contains or uses figures of speech. When people use the term figurative language, however, they often do so in a slightly narrower way. So using these more specific definitions, which we will get into.
Yes, because figurative language, if you want to picture it like an umbrella, and then there's different things under the umbrella.
Yeah.
Not just like...
I hear a craft coming.
A craft?
You can like make an umbrella and then have raindrops.
I wasn't going to make a craft, but I feel like now I have to.
Well, we
Thank you
could.
for
Like,
that,
that's
Deb.
a good speech activity. Yeah. You can have like... Or you could have like a simile umbrella and then just have the raindrops be a bunch of similes. Like
levels to it.
Yeah, there's levels to all this. Right. We're getting meta with figurative language.
Yes.
But yeah, so
exciting.
I like to work on figurative language because the majority of my caseload, taking into consideration I'm in the gen ed atmosphere, a lot of them, they start to, once they do well with the literal WH questions, like what is this, where did they go, what are they doing, things that could be answered based on the text or the picture provided, they start to get that rather rapidly once they grasp the concept. So you might be like at 40% accuracy for a long time, but then you go from like 40 to 70 and then you like stay at 70 until they get all of the knowledge and then you're right away at 80. I feel like it's like a big jump quick. But then the difficult part is getting them to expand beyond the text and beyond the picture to draw a conclusion based on the information provided. So that I feel like is the struggle with that population. And in order to increase their skills, you need to work on all these different aspects of figurative language.
I agree. And it's hard. Not hard. I don't want to say that word. I retract that statement. There's a lot that goes into figurative language because we're going to break it down too. So like you might work on metaphors a lot, but once you see like a simile, it's like, oh, that's a little different now. We got to backtrack and kind of start. So
I start with similes.
Yeah.
I think they're easier. Yeah.
Right.
So
do you want to break down all 11 and then we're going to break down each one?
Okay, so you want to list what you have
here? Yes,
I'm
going to list all the aspects of figurative language.
Before we get into that, though, one of the main reasons why it's so important, though, is like as an individual progresses through the grades, the reading material that they have, it gets increasingly complex.
Yes, that's true.
So it's like you get to the point where you're in third grade and you're able to decode all of these words fluently, but then you have to understand the underlining meaning of the text. And Hemingway has the Iceberg Theory.
Hemingway? Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'm thinking like Piaget, but no.
This is different. It's a writing technique that's coined by Hemingway, and he has this. He's saying that what an author chooses not to say is just as important as what an author chooses to say. Mm-hmm. So things like the content and the organization, the diction, like the word choice, the scenarios, all the information that's left out is just as important as the information that's included within the text. So if you don't teach children how to identify these important indicators or aspects of information within a text, then they're not going to be able to progress past the level that they're at.
Right, which is if you're thinking of this visually, like for all the visual learners,
right?
It's the iceberg, right? And then like what's above the sea is like the actual like literal words and the vocabulary words, and then what's underneath is mostly like what's not said, what the setting is looking like, and what's not said about the setting,
right?
And different things like that are, I think, pretty abstract and difficult for anyone,
right?
Let alone someone who's language impaired,
right?
To really like think about and like process, and like of course like thinking outside their own head too. So different experiences they might not be even able to relate
It's a struggle
to.
for them to make a text to life connection
Right.
because they don't relate to the text that's speaking figuratively, or perhaps they're not able to put themselves in that character's shoes.
Right. And on top of like this is like separate from like attention, right? Like
in addition
sensory.
to all those things.
Yeah, like the teacher's voice is too low. You know, I don't know, I'm just picking out
Right.
like these other variables that are like totally unrelated to the actual story.
Right. But
Okay.
then they miss the whole story because there's just so much going on.
Right. So where do we begin?
Well, okay, so according to we'll
Yeah.
just go in the order of your
Yeah,
list.
we're going to go into my list so we could break it down even further.
So number 1 is a metaphor, and that's
Mhm.
when you're comparing two unalike things and finding some sort of commonality, and you're not using the words like or as.
Right.
And to target this, I might be like, Maria is a delicate flower.
oh, thank you.
So
I was
the
not
two
thinking you were
things
gonna go
being
there.
compared are Maria and the flower,
Uh-huh.
and the similarity is that both things are delicate. You're welcome.
I feel like I'm going to have a little sip of wine for that. Like, oh, should I put like my pinky up too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
So
Mm.
in order to help somebody comprehend something like that, I might have a list of 10 metaphors and then instruct them to identify what two things are being compared and what do they have in common. So, like,
A Venn diagram, if
yeah,
you will.
like Amanda is a tall tree. So
Ah.
both Amanda and the tree are being compared because they are both tall. Is Amanda as tall as the tree? No, that's just being
Right.
silly. We're saying too much.
Right.
And,
And
yeah.
then what about this tree? I like look at it like this. What about this tree is really apparent? Oh, it's like so tall. And look
Mhm.
at Amanda, also so tall.
Right.
They have that in common.
They have that in common.
So finding
And we
that
both do
theme.
this like similar thing with our fingers. I do that too. Like I put my
Right.
fingers together to say the same in sign
Ah,
language.
okay. I didn't even know that was
Yeah.
a sign. I never took ASL.
I think it is. I mean, I don't know where I got it from if it's not sign language. Next on your list, you have. Are we done with metaphors or?
Yeah, I was also thinking like hungry as a pig or something.
Well,
Is
that's
that,
a
no, that's I
simile.
messed it up. I messed it up.
So you
I
can
think I
be
meant
like,
metaphor.
yeah, he's a starving pig.
Okay.
That's what you're just saying that he is. And then when I want a child to identify it, I'd be like, is he really a starving pig? No, he's a human, but he might be hungry like a starving pig. So
Gotcha.
the human and the pig are being compared because they're both starving.
Got it.
Things like that.
And there's obviously a lot of books with with metaphors, and you could Google them if that's really like the type of figurative language you want to focus on. I don't know. I found
like
one
having
here.
lists of examples though, and then finding that, because sometimes within a book it's like, okay, how much of this book do I have to
Right.
read to come across a metaphor?
True.
And
Unless
now I
this-
like dedicated all this time to that.
this
um,
whole book seems like it's a metaphor.
Yeah, it could be. And I love using books, but for the most part, I like to do exercises because I feel like it makes it a little bit more easier to understand.
Definitely in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I agree with that. Like a
Next is-
drill almost.
Yeah.
Equivalent to
Yes.
a drill.
Yes.
It's all about
And then
drill.
do a story and then see if they can like generalize that
Right.
exercise to that story.
Exactly. 'Cause it might be too hard.
Personification. Do you know what
Yes.
personification
I
is?
do. It's when you're giving a human quality to animals or inanimate objects.
Yes.
So like the tree is talking and feeling in a
Mhm.
book, or
But maybe I would say
like-
more like the tree is dancing, because like a
Oh.
tree might be like blowing in the wind, which could appear like dancing.
Okay.
So I try to pick things like I say, if I'm using it as an example, I'll do the tree is dancing, the sun is smiling. Like the sun is not actually smiling, but it's
Right.
quite warm.
Yes.
The sky cried, and it's not really crying, but it's raining.
It's raining. I like
Things
that.
like that. Start trying to like pick something realistic, but then giving it a human quality.
And that's, I think, again, like connecting the two
Right.
ideas, which is what we talked about for metaphors.
Right. Trying to make it like the least abstract as you can when it is abstract.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of see how you put, like, the sky is crying with raining, right? Because when
Mhm.
you cry, water falls down, just like the rain.
Right, and I also like to use emotions and compare them to weather, and I use it mostly with similes, which we'll get to when we get to that. But if you could say, like, the earth was sad today, and, like, maybe if I said, oh, the earth was sad today, what do you think the weather was like?
Yeah.
What do you think sad weather is like? And then they would maybe say crying or raining, things like that.
I was thinking like a tornado or something.
I would think that's angry weather.
True.
That's like raging weather, like I'm outraged, I'm furious, I'm livid, stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think that's so sad.
I'm just throwing things out there.
Okay.
Just seeing what you're gonna do, because I know you like these things.
I do. I love
language.
All figurative language.
Yes. Do you think it's because you like comedy?
Perhaps. The appreciation of humor, it involves very many cognitive components, such as like recognizing incongruity in a situation, identifying similar sound sequences, understanding words have multiple meanings so that can apply to puns, the use of metaphors and similes, like your mama is so fat. She's
we already said the B-I-T-C-H
she's as big as a
word.
house. Yeah.
Right.
Which is not a funny joke, but
Right.
just common.
I mean, I did enjoy the Yo Mama jokes in the 90s. I mean, who didn't? Like, I'm going to keep it real.
I don't think anyone ever said any of them to me, and I
had
didn't
a whole
say
book
any.
of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I had the part 2.
Really?
Yes.
Part 1 and part 2?
I did.
You had the sequel to
I
the
did.
Your Mama jokes.
Yeah, that's right. I did.
Oh.
And if I find those, I'm keeping on to those.
All right. I have a couple joke books. I like jokes. Why did the rap star carry an umbrella?
Because...
Faux drizzle.
Oh. See, you say pho, and I really think of the Vietnamese soup.
It's pho.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
positive.
I feel like I'm going to trust your opinion there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had Vietnamese ice cream over the weekend, too.
Oh,
Fun
was that
fact,
good?
It was delicious.
Oh, was that the shaved ice cream that
yes.
you put on?
Yep.
Mike
Follow
was
our
looking at
Instagram.
our
We have good
story,
stuff.
and he's like, why is Maria eating all this trendy food all the time?
Why is Mike hating on my life?
He is a hater.
Such a hater.
Haters gonna hate,
Haters
hate,
gonna
hate.
Speaking of hating, I'm kidding. This doesn't really relate to hating. Number 3, I like this word, onomatopoeia.
Onomatopoeia.
That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, onomatopoeia.
That's what I thought it was. I doubted myself.
That's when words sound like the noise they make.
Right, like crash.
Yeah, and
Buzz.
and moo and
And ring.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the different sound effects.
These are fun for if you want to make comics.
I was thinking like superheroes,
Yeah,
right?
or Zap.
And
yeah.
wordless picture books.
Mhm.
Like, like they drop something. Let's start with like swish or something.
Right, yeah. I like to use onomatopoeia for early language users.
Yes, like the car.
Yeah.
Vroom.
Mm-hmm.
I work on that too, especially with early language learners, like
Yeah.
just to get them to like phonate
Just
and
make
vocalize.
some sort of noise, because a lot of these are just
when a
sustained
noise
phonations.
passes us.
Right.
Yes.
So noisy here.
It's Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of offended though, going back to Mike hating on my trendy food.
Ah, well, take it up with him.
Arg.
Arg.
Oh my god. Anyway, I'll get past that. So, alliteration, which I think is Deb's favorite. No? If you had to pick a
No.
favorite, it's not?
I
All right.
like alliteration, but I
We'll
like
pick
to
our
teach it
favorite
at the
the
same
end,
time as
maybe.
rhyme. Because alliteration
Okay.
is when you're having the same repeating initial sound, and then rhyme is when you're having the same repeating final sound. Like dawn goes down to day, D, 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 nothing gold can stay. Or her hardest hue to hold, H, 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 H.
Nice.
Yeah, so lots of times it's good to work on alliteration before working on rhyme, I think, because sometimes when you tell kids, like, oh, it's in the end, like, think about this sound that's at the end, think about this word that's at the end, they always go to the beginning, no matter how many times you say the end. So that's why I'm like, let's just do the beginning, and then we'll do the end.
Because it's the first sound you hear.
Yeah.
So
And it's hard for them to, like, conceptualize it, I think. But if we, like, start off by identifying those initial sounds, then it's much easier then to identify those final sounds.
Right.
So then I might have a worksheet that has, like, most of the letters of the alphabet, but I'm not doing all of them because that is annoying and hard. Like, you're not going to think of a sentence that has all X's in it or all U's in it.
Zingy zang zastered
Half the
in
time
the
I don't
zest.
even know what an X says.
I want to say it's a KS phonetically.
Sometimes, but like xylophone.
Right.
You know, it's just too confusing. Get rid of it. It
Right.
doesn't need to be there. So just do like a work shape plus like that's too many letters. Just pick 10.
I like the H because it's just like a sound.
Yeah, it's like you can work on an easy onset while
Right.
you're doing that too.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm all about mixed groups.
All about the mixed groups.
Yeah.
I see it. I was thinking of also B for like bilabial sounds. Oh, look at that.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, so that
For,
you're
like,
just repeating it.
Fluency and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we are at our halfway point. So hold on for a brief commercial break.
This episode is brought to you by ThroatScope, the best tool an SLP could have.
ThroatScope is an illuminated tongue depressor and retraction tool.
It's great for those very necessary oral mechanism exams.
ThroatScope integrates a natural light source to provide complete intraoral illumination for improved patient examination and outcomes.
It includes a reusable light handle that slides into a single-use tongue depressor.
So, if you want to feel like a prepared SLP, you're going to want to have your ThroatScope handy. Available on www.throatscope.com.
And we're back. We want to let you know that we are so excited about our show, the live recording of SLP's Wine and Cheese podcast on Friday, May 31st at the Creek in the Cave in Long Island City.
Show starts at 8, but the doors are going to open at 7:30, and you could purchase your tickets online beforehand.
Mm-hmm. It'll be a really fun night, and there'll be an after party to be determined after.
Yeah, let's just get through the
We're
show.
just getting through the show
We
first.
want to live in the moment as we always do.
Yes.
And enjoy the wine, enjoy the company. And
Exactly.
we're really looking forward to meeting our listeners. And also, don't feel like, oh, if I'm not an SLP or if any of my SLP friends are too busy.
Right.
Just bring a regular friend.
Yeah, anyone
You
is
know?
going to enjoy it because, like we said, we're really only going to talk about speech stuff for the first 15 minutes, and then the comedians are going to come up and they're going to do their comedy sets that they have done a bunch of times already that have nothing to do with speech. So
Right.
it will be very entertaining for your friends who are not involved in speech pathology.
But really, speech is everywhere, right?
It sure
because
is.
of the metalinguistics.
Right. Yes, exactly. So the whole point of really working on figurative language here is getting your client to not only use language and hopefully by the time you're working on figurative language, they've already been using language to label and request. They can decode words. They're reading fluently, and they can answer a variety of concrete WH text-based questions.
Absolutely.
And now once we get there, we can't stop. We can't be like, did it, finished. No. We have to teach them to think about language and to think about underlining meanings and what more that could mean or what the author is really trying to say based on the information that they left out or
Right.
the words that they chose to use.
Right, to describe
To
various
describe
things.
something,
I
yeah.
feel like we need a cheers to that, you know,
Cheers.
with our Grenache grapes here. Not Calatayud.
Mm-mm.
That is an area of Spain.
Well, still, we had something right. That wasn't wrong.
Good point.
Yeah.
You know, just messed up my who and where and what questions.
Right, exactly.
Which is literal.
Yes,
in the sense.
exactly. You just didn't understand the concept of the wine. That's why you. It appeared that you did not understand question form.
Yes, it
But
did
you,
appear that
you
way.
obviously were just not knowledgeable about the product.
Right,
That
but
was all.
now I am.
Now you got it.
I got it. Way
So
better.
what's next on our figurative language list?
I think it's your favorite. Similes?
I guess they're really all my favorite,
Oh,
but
okay.
I
feel like
have
if you
to
had
say-
pick one.
if I had to pick one of it, would probably be. I like personification. I feel
Okay.
like, because that's like what Disney does too. Like, you know, they personify animals. Like the Lion Kings are very humanized,
Yes.
and the tree and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's like one of the first to work on because it's like what kids do automatically with their imagination,
Right.
kind of like humanize animals
Mhm.
and weather and things like that. But I also I like similes a lot, and that's what we're on.
Good.
So simile is when we're going to compare two unalike things using the word like or as. So it's the same thing
Right.
as a metaphor, just with the words like or as. So first I would teach similes. Then I would teach metaphors, and then I would mix them up on a page and have them identify whether it was a simile or a metaphor. And then I'd be like, turn this metaphor into a simile.
Wow, that sounds intense.
Well, if I said to you, Maria is a delicate flower, that's
Right.
a metaphor. And then if I told you, turn it into a simile, you'd have to say Maria is delicate like a flower, or Maria is as delicate as a flower.
Gotcha.
Even if you're working on articulation and figurative language, you have L and you have as, like Z, which, you know, I work on Z and S together.
Of course. Yeah, just the voicing is
Yeah.
different. I like that idea, and I feel like obviously you're working on metalinguistics, but you could very easily pair this while working on, let's say, something related to speech, like disfluency, like cluttering, which we haven't really talked about, but you know,
we
you could
haven't talked too
but
much
you could
about
definitely
that.
talk about that, and also like articulation, you know, or voice if you want to get crazy, you know. So there are other aspects that you can connect. So this is not just like only. You could work on this. You know, you incorporate
I
this.
don't know what is a speech activity that only works on one goal, which I think is interesting because I get lots of emails and DMs about like, well, what about mixed groups? I'm like, isn't every group a mixed group? And what speech activity, even if it's articulation, you're still exposing them to more vocabulary.
Yeah, of course.
Because like, there's only so many words that start with S or have S and
right. Like one of your worksheets, like Z was zest, and one of the
zest on
you
there?
had zest on there, and one of the
Oh.
students didn't know it, so it was like, well, you know, how would she know this unless she's like cooking
Right.
something very fancy,
right.
and cooking some zest, some lemon zest. But it's like, all right, here's a new vocab
Right,
word.
you learn that. I
You
like
learn
to
new
teach
vocab.
silhouette when I'm working on S and L
Oh.
and T.
That's a fancy one.
Yeah, I have in my coloring book too. I have a picture of a silhouette,
I think yes, you do.
the
The
girl
girl
with the
carrying the balloons,
which is some German artist's picture that I just drew, which I probably could get sued for, but I don't think so. If
I mean, I
anyone
would
sued
hope
me,
not.
I feel honored because I'd be like, wow, I replicated that so well that,
right.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I kind of hope you don't get sued. So
Yeah, well, I mean, to get sued would be an awfully big adventure.
okay.
That's what Peter Pan
I
says
feel like
about death. He says to die would be an awfully big adventure.
Interesting. This has taken a rapid turn. So I feel like should we go into idioms? Idioms are very difficult, and especially
I think
with-
idioms are really dumb, and I
Okay.
think they're my least favorite.
they are fun. They can be fun to work on if you work
Uh-huh.
on the easier ones first.
Right.
And really, you have to teach them, and they're very difficult for kids on the spectrum. And I like to start with like raining cats and dogs because that is like
Right.
the easiest.
And
quote
that is
unquote.
something that people might say.
Exactly. And also, I think it's cultural too because not for nothing, I haven't heard of some of these idioms.
No.
And I'm like, what?
Who even says these?
I don't know. The straw that broke the camel's back. I learned that like 2 years ago. I'm like,
Oh.
what? That's a thing.
Michael Che has a joke about like screwed the pooch.
I don't know. Is that
He's
one?
like, yeah, it means screwed the pooch means like you got something wrong, and his joke is something like I'm gonna mess it up, but he's just like he was working, and then somebody got all the writers at SNL Starbucks, and they got him the wrong order, and he's like, I guess I screwed the pooch, and he's like, you slept with a dog? Like that's what you just said you did. So like, where did that come from originally? Like, did someone make a mistake and equate it to
Yeah.
having like an inappropriate interaction with a dog? Like, because there's a very different
Right. Exactly.
experience there. But yeah,
I
screw the
think
pooch.
some of them do have like a history. Like I don't
Yeah,
quote
like
me on
don't
this.
throw the baby out with the bathwater or something, because like that's when people used to wash babies in
right.
buckets. But like again, we're like dating ourselves here, and this is not something that's like commonly used. So
Yes, true.
So I mean, I'm not saying don't work on idioms. I'm just saying I don't work on idioms. Not to mention that anybody that I even say idiom to will be like, "Would you just call me?"
Right.
And I'm like, "This is a waste of my time." Now
Right.
we're joking around about the name of this activity.
It's another 5 minutes I don't have.
Exactly. I'm like, "Ha ha! It's very funny." Idioms.
I think when you excuse me, when you see the idioms, let's say in a story or they come up incidentally, I think it's good to teach like the context clues. I feel like you might get more out of that than like actually breaking down the idiom, because it could be anything. Like,
right.
My
point is, do we need a super duper book of idioms?
Maybe.
I don't think so.
I don't know,
No,
but
I
just said
I think there's like 4 that people use all the time. It's raining cats and dogs.
Don't cry over spilled milk. I was going to say that
that's
one.
a good one. Don't cry over spilled milk.
Is that because in like the Depression milk was so expensive? That's the one I was thinking, where I was
but
saying,
I think
don't quote
you
me
would
on.
cry over that, though.
Right, because that leaves a mess.
Yeah, I would totally cry over. See, none of these make sense. Like, if somebody told me not to cry over spilled milk, I'd be like, well, why not? Now I have no milk left, and my floor's a mess.
Yeah, and we're going to just
I like in a pickle.
Right, because you like pickles?
Yeah, but then you can teach conundrum, which is just a big, silly word, which means the same thing.
Okay.
Like a tricky situation with 2 choices.
Or a sticky situation.
Uh-huh.
Gotcha.
Insult to injury. Okay.
I like that one.
And then balls in your court, maybe.
I like that one.
Beat around the bush.
You could use that one when you're dating.
Best thing since sliced bread.
That's good.
Bite off more than you can chew. Okay, there's more than I thought. Right. But I really just don't see the point in working on these so much. But I mean, I'm not saying don't. Like, you could do it for a day.
For a day.
Like 1 session.
Yeah. It depends, If it's really, like, impairing them, like, they're trying to use idioms to, like, engage with their peers and, like, no one's getting what they're saying.
Yeah, but then teach them sarcasm or metaphors or similes. Not, like... Not idioms that just old white people use that nobody else does. Like, that's really what it is. Like, nobody uses this. I'm
going to burn the midnight oil.
Right. Yeah,
I don't even know what accent that was.
Can't judge a book by its cover. Okay, you can do that. But yeah.
All right.
Cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, let's cross that bridge when we get to it. How about a hyperbole?
Hyperbole.
Yeah, Mike's favorite, right?
Yes, he likes to be
to
hyperbolic. That's an exaggeration. That's like me saying, oh my God, it took 1,000 years to get across the street.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Which is just a really fun thing to do in speech. Once again, I think way more useful than idioms to over exaggerate.
Okay.
Just be like, it took like all of the muscles in my body to finish writing that paper. Like, no, it didn't. I'm being silly.
Right.
I'm not saying what I really mean.
Yeah, you're just
saying it extra.
You're being extra. I get it.
Yeah, just being extra.
And I think that's what makes comedy, certain things, like very funny. When they like over exaggerate something, and I think that's what makes certain comedians funny.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, to be hyperbolic is, to exaggerate really is probably like one of the keys to comedy. We'll have to ask the comedian when he arrives. I'm sure he'll enter the room shortly.
Yes. And then we have the opposite, which is an understatement.
Yes.
Which are also, I think, very funny.
Yes, I love understatements. I think that's like one of my favorite views of comedy.
That's what I was going to say.
Gary Veeder has a joke where he's talking about, he's like, and he's very monotone when he speaks. He speaks like this a lot. And he's like, I recently joined a gym and it's open until midnight. And I said, if anyone sees me at the gym at midnight, then I need help because I have been stuck under a weight for a very long time.
I think I've heard that one.
He was on America's Got Talent or Last Comic Standing. I can't remember. One of those.
Okay.
But yeah, he's funny. So like what else? I can't think of another understatement joke right now. I didn't prepare enough for this episode.
That's okay.
But understatements are funny. That's like when people are, you know what the best understatement is? When they're like, oh, this guy didn't call me back, so maybe he got hit by a bus.
Right.
Right? Because you're just like, that's a very harsh thing to wish for someone, but at least they didn't ghost you. They just became a ghost. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with all of everything you've said there.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about imagery, or did you feel like you wanted more about understatements? Because they feel like understatements are sometimes difficult to understand and not always funny. So I feel like it kind of also depends on like certain people's preference.
Probably.
You know, like, oh, I didn't think that was that funny. So it
Mhm.
might be hard to quote unquote teach it for like comedic reasons.
Right.
But,
I
like,
would definitely, I have not thought this out enough for this episode, but I
feel
would
like
think
It's just
about
an
it.
understatement. I feel like you know
No,
what you're
I
doing.
would, I would think of something way better than this on how to like, I'll think about it in part 2 or part 3 of this episode, but a way to actually make this funny and like usable. I'll come back to that. So remember that, audience.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always have to be funny. It could just be the terms of the language.
No, but
you know,
humor is like the number one positive reinforcement.
That's
so
true.
it's
Laughing.
going to increase the likelihood that the behavior will reoccur and that it'll be more engaging, because lots of theories of humor
Right.
are about like leadership and manipulation, kind of.
Really?
Yeah.
What is that?
'Cause
I
you're
don't know
able
what
to,
that is
like,
about.
Captivate and control and elicit an involuntary response in a listener. So it's like lots of leaders utilize humor in order to like maintain control over their subordinates, and
oh, really? That's
yeah, things like that.
interesting.
So like utilizing, not everything has to be funny, but when it is, it's way more memorable and it has like a visceral response in the listener, which is like going to increase comprehension, because like if you laughed, then you experienced it more personally, probably.
Gotcha.
Right?
Right. Yes, because you can relate. On
Right,
that
yeah.
sense.
It didn't go over your head.
Yeah.
You got it.
I feel
and-
like understatement is also like kind of being like sarcastic. Like if it rained a lot and it's like, oh, just a little drizzle and it's like downpouring, you know? So I think it's also depending on like certain situations. But definitely worth teaching, I think. Even incidentally.
Yeah,
So-
I like understatements. They're fun. And
Good.
the sarcasm, we didn't get sarcasm and irony on this list, but
It wasn't really on the list I was researching, but maybe that's
Oh.
why I was thinking in terms of like an understatement.
could
Would be like a sarcastic remark.
right.
So that's what I was thinking. But we could add it.
We
Number
could do it.
12.
Number
Or
12.
11B. Or 8B, excuse me. 8B would be sarcasm if you want to.
Mhm.
Underneath understatement, you would put sarcasm. Sarcasm, but also the other aspect, satire, where it's like the total opposite of the truth of what
No,
the
that's
person is saying.
irony.
Irony?
So
What's
satire,
the satire? Oh, satire is when you're like saying it like a joke, but you're actually serious.
No.
I feel like I'm confusing myself now.
satire is when you're talking about something that relates to social issues. So if you're
Okay,
making like a
yes.
political sort of commentary and a joke about that, that's like satirical humor.
Like the Onion.
Yes.
Yes, got it.
But sarcasm and irony are very similar. But irony, I think the difference between sarcasm and irony is that like irony is the umbrella term and sarcasm comes underneath it. So irony means like the exact opposite of what you mean. And that's kind of what sarcasm is. But sarcasm is generally utilized in order to demean somebody. It's like a little bit of an insult. Like it's like, oh,
That was a funny joke.
that was a funny joke. Yeah. So like I'm saying that the opposite.
right.
Or like that's a cute skirt, like in Mean Girls, and
Right.
that's not.
Exactly. Which is not nice.
No, that's not nice.
All right. So let's go on to imagery. Which
Imagery.
I feel like is very nice because there's different parts of imagery and it can get from like simple to more complex. I think imagery is nice to work on when you're having a student write their own story. So it would help to like add details. So like, I don't know if they're like writing a story about something. So like, it was raining outside. I'm just going to stick with the weather example. Like, but how was it raining? Let's think about it. And then like you could work from there, and then that I feel like is a good way to work on imagery because it's like using their own imagination too, and not just like this is the idiom and now we gotta memorize it and what
Right.
it means. Where the imagery, I feel like they have, the person or the client has more control and more of like a say, I guess, of how they could paint this picture or this image, pun intended.
Right.
Yes.
Okay,
score.
good.
Winning right now. So imagery, I think, is a great way to work on it through writing, really. and expanding their already written sentences and making them more complex and using their imagination.
So I have stories that are called house stories, and they used to be on my website, but I deleted them by mistake, and I forgot to put them back up.
Okay, well, here
But
you go.
basically, there's like a cloud, and then it's describing a person in their house, and
Yeah,
based on
I have that.
Yeah. Did you use it yet?
I didn't use it yet.
It's kind of hard for it's got to be for a little bit older kids.
Yes, I'm waiting.
But so I use imagery there so that they can describe the house. Well, they can draw a house based on a written description. So like there's imagery within that written description. And then also whenever I'm working on imagery, I'll always create a story about like some sort of fairy that lives in a place where there's lots of rainbows and waterfalls and flowers everywhere, so that the person who's listening is able to really picture this like Wizard of Oz type place. And
Right, and very imaginative.
right.
Which goes with the word. Imagery.
Yeah, image.
There you go.
Like you can see the image.
Yeah, exactly. And putting words to their thoughts.
Yeah.
Which I think is great. And we want to talk about now cliche. What is a cliche? It's something that is lacking in original thought and originality.
Right, like something that's just been said so many times that like you don't even hear the individual words, you just know what that phrase together means, like in the nick of time, or only time will tell, or a matter of time, or at the speed of light, or last in an eternity. So a cliche kind of combines a variety of these figurative language components, such as like idioms and metaphors, and these are just common phrases that people use all the time.
Yeah.
They're
and
very similar to idioms.
They are. And I guess when you're like I guess a lot of times you'll see these in obviously like scripts and like maybe movies, but I'm thinking more in terms of books. And it's kind of like priming you into like what's happening next or what will happen next. So like in the nick of time, the, Superman made it. So it kind of is like giving you that awareness of like what to anticipate. So like looking for these clues are a good way to help with like inferencing, I guess, or predictions, really.
Yeah, and you can also like teach kids to say these things if you would like to. I feel like cliches are, because they're overused and they lack original thought, they are commonly used as opposed to idioms, which
Right.
are like a little bit more silly and a little bit more cultural specific.
And abstract.
Yeah, exactly.
Where-
But at the speed of light is scientific and also something that could be a figure of speech.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And it's basing off of pre-existing knowledge too. So,
Yeah.
Using at the speed of light is already assuming that they know that. That means very fast.
Yes.
So sometimes you might have to even teach the cliche before you can go into other information attaching itself to the cliche.
Exactly.
Yeah. And last but not least,
We have symbolism.
right.
And I feel like symbolism can be taught in so many different ways, but I feel like the most time I ever spent on symbolism was when I was working in high school and we were working on Macbeth, because there's just so many symbols throughout the story, and motifs. So motifs are just reoccurring symbols. So it's just like when that symbol comes up multiple times throughout the story. So throughout Macbeth, there's the symbol of blood, which like demonstrates guilt. He's got blood on his hands. He's trying to wash them off, but it's just a hallucination. He also like hallucinates seeing a dagger throughout the entire story, and that's a symbol of the impending death that's coming, and things along the lines of that. Shakespeare likes to use weather as a symbol to correspond with the mood or foreshadow the scene. So it starts off with the three witches, and it's dark and it's a stormy night, and that's when they have the prophecy that Macbeth is going to
Kill someone.
he's going to kill Banquo.
Yes.
Well, that's not his prophecy. His prophecy is that Banquo is going to become the king. So Macbeth has to kill him. And then he gets haunted by that death through the symbols. So I have this book from Usborne, and it's the complete Shakespeare works, and it's great for breaking down each story on a more tangible level to work on these very figurative components of stories that our students do get exposed to in the higher levels of their education.
Exactly. And it's hard for them to connect to text, relate to text, but if you do break it down like that, it's more feasible, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
Exactly. Yeah. That's great. I think that's a great book, especially for high school students.
Yeah, I think it's super helpful. And
welcoming.
We're going to welcome our guest. Yeah.
He is going to be there on May 31st, and we're going to get to know him a little bit better and his opinion on figurative language.
Welcome to the after show. All right, here he is. Say hi.
Hello.
So, what do you think about figurative language in writing? Do you like to use figurative language, or are you more of a concrete type of guy?
What is figurative language?
So, like using non-literal language, so not saying exactly what you mean, using like so what would that be an example of?
Mike is being quizzed, not myself.
Well, I'm going to give him the word, and then I'm not quizzing him, I just want him to give examples.
Okay.
I feel like that was a little bit hostile. Okay.
But figurative language is what?
So figurative language is like when you're saying something with an underlining meaning. So you're utilizing like specific diction. So instead of saying that I was mad, you might say she was furious, like to demonstrate that this person is way more furious. Or to say that I was like not to say, oh, she was so quick, but she got there in the nick of time. You know, like utilizing some sort of cliche or phrase.
Would furious count as like figurative language, just like a more complex vocabulary word? I'm thinking like steam blowing out of my ears, like that.
Right. So that would be imagery, right, to convey my emotion. But diction is word choice, and that's when you're specifically using a word to demonstrate that meaning. So like not only was she mad, but she was furious, like, you know, to make it seem like you're heightening the stakes, right? So lots of comedy, I think, involves figurative language, and maybe more so than you realize. So the first is a metaphor. Do you know what a metaphor is?
Yes.
What's a metaphor?
Well, unlike a simile.
Yeah, I didn't mean to. That was not my intention. That's not how I wanted this to go.
Well, unlike a simile, which is a comparison using like or as, a metaphor is like calling something.
Right. So let's
hear him.
So like he was a I don't even know my brain's kind of fried today, but he was a whiz. He was a whiz kid.
Okay.
He was a wizard.
Okay, he was a wizard. So but if you wanted to turn that,
he was a wizard on the keyboard or something. Or
there you go.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to make that a simile, you can be like, he was like a wizard, or he was as quick as a wizard on a keyboard. Great. Yes.
He was a silver fox.
Right. Next is personification.
Mm-hmm. Personification is when you make like an inanimate object, you give it human tendencies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what example do you have for?
I feel like, do we want to give Mike a cheat sheet or?
No, he's fine.
Oh, Mike, I feel bad.
I don't know. Personification is like, I don't know, like if you were describing like a clock that was moving slowly or quickly.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Like you could say like the clock was like
I
not
can't
moving.
think of a specific example of personification.
I like to say, so like in Disney, lots of the animals and creatures are personified because they're like given human qualities, right?
Right.
But also like I say something, I already mentioned this earlier, like the sky cried.
Yeah.
But the sky isn't crying, the sky is raining.
Right.
Right.
Right. It's God crying.
Right.
Because of all the sin.
Right, exactly. What about onomatopoeia?
Onomatopoeia is a word that is to convey a sound.
Yes. Look how smart you are. Even as a baby, he was very smart. That's what his grandma told me.
A lot of good I did.
Nice. Good. Great. So how would you use that as an example?
I guess in Batman when it's like pow, zing. Yeah.
Superheroes. See?
Yeah,
Thud.
you and everyone else, Marie. That's like what when everyone uses that.
Thud.
Next. Next is, you covered the list.
Oh, I thought we were quizzing you now. Just kidding. Ba-dum-bum. Alliteration.
Alliteration is when the letter when they have the same first letter.
First letter?
The first letter of the word.
First,
Yes, in layman's terms.
The first letter of the word matches.
first sound. Because what if it's not the same? What if it's C's and S's? It still works.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But I know what you meant. I got your back, Mike.
Yeah.
Very
thanks.
good, Michael. Can you give me an example of alliteration?
Ding dong.
Good one.
Nice. What about a simile?
A simile is a comparison using like or as.
Mm-hmm.
So like quick as a fox, sharp as a tack.
Good. Yes.
Can't say I've heard of that one.
You didn't hear that
No.
one? What about idiom?
Sharp as a whip,
Mm-hmm.
or smart as a whip.
Smart
That's
as-
like,
Smart as a whip.
which is a weird, yeah.
You're kind of making a cliche and a simile together. You're like
Okay.
using common phrases, but you can just be like, Mike was as slow as molasses.
Right, slow as molasses. My mom used to say that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
Interesting. She used to say it. I'm kidding. Just kidding. But I'm bummed.
are you much faster now?
Yeah.
That's good. I like, but then going back to like things of speed, I love in Devil Wears Prada when she's like, please move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like everything. That's like sarcasm, metaphor,
Yeah.
all of the things. Next is an idiom.
Something to do with opposites.
No, it's more like it's raining cats and dogs.
It's like an exaggeration.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it's a phrase. It's like a saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
And every language has their own. So a lot of times it won't translate over. So I was thinking of like ESL kids might not know. Or
Is there
ENL
something? Is
or
there something in
whatever.
Greek that?
There's so many that I've been learning in Greek too.
What's an expression in Greek that?
Do you want me to say it in Greek?
Yeah, say it
Oh,
in
like irthane ola kuti, and that just means like everything came perfect, but it literally translates to everything came box. Everything came like I guess.
Oh,
like, in
okay.
a box.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. But
Because in Italian, because like in English, you say I can't wait.
oh, okay.
Like I can't wait for this, but then in Italian, I can't wait is non vedo l'ora, which translates to I don't see the hour,
Oh, okay.
which is kind of
Yeah, so
strange.
They're similar.
But you could still see it like I don't see the hour when that's going to happen. You know? Yeah. And then how about hyperbole?
Hyperbole is an exaggeration.
Your favorite, right?
Yeah, I'm the king of hyperbole.
All right. Like you said, this house was too loud and you couldn't think.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
This house is too chaotic.
Right. But I
Yeah.
think it's like your Instagram stories on 1,000 volume, which is what's making it hard to think.
Maybe.
But
Speaking of Instagram stories, I have a bone to pick. Look at that. Mike, apparently I'm eating too much fancy cuisine. I thought you'd be happy for me.
What do you mean?
she was eating all the trendy food.
When?
When she was getting shaved ice cream.
Oh yeah. Why? So nothing sacred between us? Well, no. Maria's just like Maria's just like a little basic. Like she'll go to. Probably goes to. She goes to Italy and then she goes to like
What's wrong with Italy? They have Nutella there.
Dave and Buster's.
Oh no, come on.
And then she.
Her favorite pizza's artichoke.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
is
she loves
artichoke.
artichoke.
That is
Yeah,
a
you're
great
you're
pizza.
basic as hell. You're maybe the most basic person I know.
That's fine by me because artichoke is delicious. And
She
so
buys
is that
she
Vietnamese
buys
ice
art from Target.
cream. I don't. I don't even really like Target that much.
Buys what from Target?
Art. Yeah.
No, she doesn't. She paints her own art.
She has it says it's wine o'clock in her kitchen.
Or in the podcast recording room.
Yeah.
Wine o'clock could be good in here.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I'm just, taken from someone who wears.
Do you have live
frequent
laugh?
tracksuits?
Do you have live laugh love on
No.
your in your house?
I don't.
No.
Next is understatement.
Understatement is like what like not stressing the point enough, I guess.
Right.
Maria's basic.
Yeah.
So, like, you're not.
Maria's basic is an understatement. Mhm.
I'll take it. I don't care.
Right, but
Yeah.
I think it's funny when comedians use understatements in their jokes, like when they like talk about something severe, but they downplay it.
Mhm. Maria has a loyalty card at the Cheesecake Factory. That's where she goes to celebrate.
You know what I used to?
Yeah.
But I'm, again, very proud of all my stuff.
Yeah.
Those mac and cheese balls. I have yet to find a place with those mac and cheese balls.
That's
but-
the stuff that works on her. Like this is why Trump's gonna win, because people are so impressed. People are so impressed with the most basic stuff.
Have
Like,
you ever made mac and
oh my
cheese
God, they
balls?
put no, and I have no desire
they're
to.
very
Mac and
difficult.
cheese is a very basic food.
But it's delicious.
Yeah, but people think that like, oh, mac and cheese. It's just you just ate it when you were a kid, and that's why. And they made it into balls. Like
Deep-fried
if you're
goodness.
but if you're impressed by that, I'm sorry, but
I'm impressed when I eat it. Yes, I feel like a lot of hard work and cheesy goodness went into this, and I'm gonna enjoy.
Maria was like, boneless buffalo. So they removed the bone. Like she was like, how do they do it?
It's really perplexing.
Yeah. She's like, how do buffalo fly with these little wings?
Mike learned how to debone a buffalo wing without
Yeah.
biting it. He could pull the bones out, and then he hands it to me boneless. I make him debone my chicken before I eat it because I don't have time for that.
Yeah. I live a very dignified life.
Great.
But isn't that funny? It's like mac and cheese, like fine, but it's like Maria thinks she's impressed that they made it into a ball.
I'm impressed by the taste.
Mm-hmm.
I do like ball-shaped food, though. I like all ball. I like meatballs. I like
Yeah.
cheese balls. I
Rice
like rice balls.
Yeah.
Mozzarella that we ate
Yeah.
in the shape of a ball. Doesn't hurt my stomach at all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if food is to be in a shape, I would suggest ball.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier, and you don't really need a knife. You could just use
Pop it right in. Cake pops are good.
cake pops.
Yeah, see, that's something you like too, where it's like it's just a tiny little alteration on a food. You're like impressed.
They are also very difficult to make. Have you ever made any of these?
Oh wait, I'm about to make Mike mad.
Maria's like,
You
oh
know
my
what,
God, meatball balls. So they make them slightly smaller.
Do you-
Meatballs in a
No, Maria would be impressed if they took meatballs and made them like Dippin' Dots, like they were a bunch of little tiny little meatballs together. And you eat them like they're Dippin' Dots,
Six Flags.
which is basically just a bolognese sauce. But yeah.
Maria had a sushi burrito the other day.
That was so long ago, but I did, and that was impressive, and it was good.
Why was that impressive though? That's not impressive. That's really not. You just
Mike is always like, "You're not gonna reinvent food."
you're just combining.
like
Right?
everyone
it's
thought of
arrogant.
everything already.
Well, no, not everyone thought of everything, but it's arrogant to think that you're gonna like reinvent some like new dish. I don't think that's gonna happen.
Well, maybe
I think
genetically
food is the
modified food.
process of. No, but I think food is the process of people like collectively building stuff and building all. You're not going to be like in your kitchen one day and you're going to discover like pudding rings or something, and it's going to be like the new like that's just not how it works.
Oh, you've never invented a food? You've never invented a food?
No, I'm not arrogant enough to think that I could.
Oh, but what about breakfast pizza?
That was not my invention.
Isn't that just pizza
I
in the morning?
made it. Yeah. No, it's not, Maria. It's
Okay.
not. It's not. It's not.
Pizza in the morning, pizza in the.
I'm gonna get some more coffee.
No, well, we're gonna be done. We
All
gotta
right.
we gotta be finished here. Okay. We'll wrap up with this. Can you explain the difference between irony, sarcasm, and satire?
Maria's like, are these Caesar salad cubes? Oh my God. That's really, I don't know how you did this. Was this magic? Is Harry Potter
She
working
is
in the
very
kitchen?
encouraging.
Yeah.
She does.
Yeah.
If you gave her something, she'd be like, "Wow."
Yeah.
I enjoy eating. I mean, who
Yeah.
doesn't? And if you don't,
Well,
I
it's
can't
nice.
trust you.
Well, when you cook, it's nice to have someone who's like easily impressed.
Yeah,
You know,
you're
'cause
welcome.
then because then you're free to like explore and, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Going back to figurative language,
Uh-huh.
reeling it in now.
Yeah.
That's a cliche, right?
Yeah.
Do you know the difference between irony, sarcasm, and satire? I feel like this is a tricky thing that I tried to
Yes.
explain, but I don't know if I was.
I feel like I learned all this in like 9th grade though. So I'm going back to but
You have a very good memory.
yeah, so irony is like okay, so irony is the opposite of
Mm-hmm.
you're doing the opposite.
Right. It's like the exact opposite. Which I feel like irony is just the umbrella term, and then
Yeah.
sarcasm is irony.
And then I guess sarcasm is like a comment made by someone who knows they're being like sarcasm is more
Facetious.
like commentary, right?
I think so. I think irony could be like no matter what you're saying, as long as you're saying the exact opposite of what you mean, that's
Yeah.
ironic. But
Yeah,
then
yeah.
if you're saying something to be insulting, like
Mhm.
wow, you were like so fast, but you mean like they're being slow.
Yeah, that's sarcasm.
That's sarcasm because
I'm
you're
fluent in sarcasm. That's what my dating
that on your
profile.
dating-
That's what my dating profile says. Yeah, fluent in sarcasm. Did you meet a lot of guys who said that when you were single?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
She's not single anymore. She forgot. Those
Right.
days are behind her.
right.
I don't know anymore, Mike.
And then what about satire?
Satire is like when you embody what you're making fun of. So like, satire is like satire is like when you're.
I thought it's like when you're commenting on the times.
Yeah, but satire is like specifically becoming what you're like making fun of. So satire is like if I wanted to like make fun of like wealth videos on Instagram, I like dressed up like a guy and had a Lamborghini and I was like
Right.
you
And
know.
then also
It's like-
wealth
it's like
videos are
Satire is like embodying whatever you're making fun of, whereas sarcasm is like, get a load of sarcasm is more like a commentary thing.
Okay.
And then satire is like
It's like that
hello,
video
I'm
you make
Australian.
me watch of that guy at the porn convention.
yeah, I guess that's satire. Satire like South Park is satire.
No idea what's happening right
No. Oh, yes, South Park is satire.
Or like political satire is like, you know, if you were going to make a show that's like about, you know, if you wanted to make fun of Donald Trump and you
Like
had
SNL.
it-
now. Gonna
Yeah.
say that, yeah.
Like sketch comedy embodying the character.
yeah,
Got
or
it.
there's like you make a sitcom that's like Trump is a character in
Mhm.
in the show.
Got it.
Like Veep, the show Veep. Do you
Yeah, I
ever watch
guess that's
Veep?
like satire, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so got it. All right. Well, that's our whole figurative language part 1 episode. Oh yeah, I was gonna skip that because I felt like we've been on here long enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Mike is gonna be doing some live stand-up comedy at our live event on Friday, May 31st at the
Yes.
Creek in the Cave in Long Island City.
And I've been instructed to not make certain jokes.
Yeah, he's got a list of things he's not allowed to talk about
Why?
because they're not for the speech comedy show.
Got it.
Yeah.
This is
You got it,
a
honey.
bunch of phrases he's not allowed to use.
Yeah.
Or
That's fine.
themes,
I
yeah.
said that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you have an inspirational quote for us to leave on?
Yeah. I forgot.
Oh, okay. So, before that, our tip or trick can be to tell a joke in speech. Do you know a joke that you? So, I'll tell a joke, you'll tell a joke, and Mike will tell a joke. So a joke that you can use in speech that I like is, what do you call a fake noodle?
An impasta.
An impasta, which is a funny joke, and you can teach what an imposter is, and you can also work on S in the medial position of the word impasta.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have a joke?
Yeah, I found one that I like. What did the left eye say to the right eye?
What?
Between us, something smells. Working on prepositions. It's a hard skill.
Perfect.
And body ID.
See, so you don't even need jokes to work on figurative language. You used a joke to work on prepositions.
Look at that. Mike, do you want to end us with a quote?
No, joke and then
Oh, okay.
A joke.
Try following that, Mike.
Can it be?
Can it be a friendly joke like we told?
Yeah.
I know. Can it be?
Hold on a second. I'm trying to think of like a funny one-liner maybe, or like a street joke.
I used to like those.
You can tell a dry cleaning joke.
What dry cleaning joke?
Gilbert Gottfried tells that joke.
No, we want
No.
authentic jokes.
Which one's that?
When he's like, I went to a bar and I was wearing a shirt and
Oh yeah, that's kind of dirty though.
it's not that bad, but okay, just tell a joke. Comedians hate this when they're like, you're a comedian, tell me a joke. And they're like, well, no one tells you to do your job when you're in an elevator. But you have a microphone.
Wife told me she wants to have sex in the back seat of the car, and she wants me to drive.
Who is
It's Rodney Dangerfield.
Great.
That's a classic.
That's a good one. All right,
Yeah.
what's your inspirational
My
quote?
wife said she wants a mirror put over her bed. She said she likes to watch herself laugh. Oh, whenever my wife has sex, there's always a reason. The other night she used me to time an egg.
All of his jokes are self-deprecating.
Yeah, it's really funny because it's like I don't know what, like that material's so funny because it's like so exaggerated that he's like that disrespected.
So
it's like,
hyperbolic?
yeah, a comedy is usually hyperbolic. It's almost always
that
hyperbolic.
On May 31st,
Yeah.
2019.
The Greek in the cave.
Freaking the cave. So, if you don't mind, as our guest of honor, can you leave us with an inspirational quote for our listeners? That maybe helps you.
I wish I had that. I'm gonna play that album later because I wish I remembered some of those jokes.
Also, topic maintenance can also be discussed during jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah, go.
Maria thinks you've gotten off topic.
All right. What do you want to do? What are we doing now?
We want you to tell us an inspirational quote to end the show with.
An inspirational quote. You only fail when you stop trying.
Oh, we had that one.
Oh.
Did you just read that?
Just check out our latest.
This isn't
Instagram
really an
post.
inspirational quote, but Mahatma Gandhi said, "There's room in the world. There's enough in the world for man's need, but not for man's greed."
And now, a word from our sponsor.
Hey ladies, I'm kind of sort of loving and openly admittingly fangirling y'all lovely duo of SLP's Wine and Cheese.
Yes, and we love listening to your podcast, First Bite.
Well, thank you. I'm Michelle Dawson, and I specialize in functional but fun treatment for medically fragile kiddos, especially for those that have feeding and swallowing impairments and who use AAC devices as part of their total communication plan. On my podcast, First Bite, we discuss all topics related to early intervention and pediatric speech therapy. We address those worrisome ethics and clinical supervision concerns, as well as jump into private practice ownership and really get into the nooks and crannies of all the things in between by interviewing guest experts in the field. Then, every fourth episode, we bring it back home to my Palmetto State by having evidence-based reviews of case studies or resources with my dear friend and colleague, Aaron Forward, who kind of sort of came up with this whole idea.
First Bite is partnered with Speech Therapy PD, offering evidence-based content in a podcast. Each episode can count as 1 hour ASHA CEU. Find them on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts.
Absolutely. And thanks for all you do and for spreading joy into the world.
Cheers.